So I'm back from Viareggio, which means Way of the King. If anybody doesn't know, Viareggio in Italy, where the house of Maria Valtorta can be found. So I'm back from Viareggio, where I went to the Congress, the Maria Valtorta Foundation Congress, last Saturday. I had a beautiful time. Was able to visit the house a couple of times, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and yesterday just before I left. And many thanks to everybody that did so much. I believe my video is dubbed in Italian automatically, so just to thank everybody, especially Don Ernesto Zucchini, Lucia, Stefano, Daniele, and Fiammata. I can just want to Gabriele Caiano, everybody that made the weekend extremely special for me. It was an honor to go and give a talk at the conference about a subject that is dear to my heart, which is the promotion of this work. Somebody left a comment saying, Robert, you're getting very fixated on this mystic. And I want to make one thing clear. If you read the 10 volumes of the Poem of the Man God, or the Gospel as revealed to me by Maria Valtorta, you don't get fixated on the mystic, you get fixated on Christ. This is the strange reality of Maria Valtorta. Because although she's there, she's describing a scene, it's like she sits to one side and she brings Christ forward. Or brings the gospel forward. Really, really brings it forward. She is a very interesting mystic in the church. This is why there's been so much debate. She has never been totally written off. There's always been this debate back and forward. The oldest bishop in Vatican II, Carnici, he would go, and when he went into the room, knelt down in front of her bed. She is, I suppose, because her writings have caused such a debate in the church, still today the debate goes on. But the thing is, when you read the writings of Maria Valtorta, you don't so much get fixated on the writer, although she is very, very important, because it's important to know her and her experience. But you're drawn into the gospel. You're drawn into the life of Christ. You're drawn into the Christian life. You're drawn into you're drawn into a mystic world in reality, because Christ is trying to draw you in and transform you in a way that this world can never do. And so much could be written about this, but it's the contemplation. You're cascaded, you're catapulted into contemplation through the writings of Maria Valtorta. You go back to the Gospels even more. You go back to sacred scripture even more. In fact, you're thrown back into sacred scripture in a strange way, very strange way. And she is the only mystic. This is the fascinating thing about Maria Valtorta. She is the only mystic that I'm aware of that you can use Galilean science, or the science of today, to verify her writings. There are thousands of details interwoven in those 10 volumes. As they are today, or the 5 volumes that were in the first edition. There are thousands of details that are simply impossible for somebody in her bed, just to make up on the fly and to keep writing. And you're thrown into the world of Christ. It was amazing during the Congress. There was, and we're hoping to do this in Ireland next year. So guys, if you want to have a Congress, a Maria Valtorta, one day Maria Valtorta Congress, maybe we try and limit it to 6 or 7 talks, bring over the foundation and a few speakers. if you want to come to this Congress next year, let me know. And I'd love to know numbers, because obviously we'd have to finance it to bring over the speakers and see if there is that interest. But if you want to, it'd be great. Again, we're lucky in a way that Pope Francis specifically wrote a letter to Don Ernesto Zucchini saying to promote the literary works of Maria Valtorta. So the Pope himself asked us to promote this work. And he put his own signature. It's not some letter that he delegated his secretaries to write. The Pope thanks you for your letters, blah, blah, blah. No, he wrote a letter to Don Ernesto Zucchini telling him to go to, in his own word, he said, avanti, go forward, promote the literary works of Maria Valtorta. So it's important that we work inside the church. This is for the good of the faithful, for the good of souls. And again, she's one of the rare mystics that you can use science to prove what she saw is true. There was 2 books at the Congress that I thought were beautiful. So there's these 2 books. I can't wait for these to be translated into English. They are. I'm glad I read Italian, because I was going through the 2 books, but it's The Life of Jesus in History. It's placing Christ in his historical context, and in the writings of Maria Valtorta, we see Christ placed in history. We know that he probably walked 10,000 kilometers over the course of those 40 months. We know more or less where he went in the desert. We know where John the Baptist preached. We know where he lived. We know where Peter lived, the apostles lived. We can retrace his apostolic mission from various places. And, using the writings of Maria Valtorta, which has a wealth of astronomical data. This is what they never understood in 1960 when they were studying the writings of Maria Valtorta. What they thought was romanticized was actually a wealth of data that we're able to mine today with AI. I mean, this work is for this time. This is the incredible reality. Her work is for our time. Because with AI, with the science that we have, Liberato De Caro, Emilio Matriciani and Fernando La Greca, some of these scientists in Italy are drawing out all of the data from her work. And the beautiful thing about the new books that they've printed, especially the second edition, second volume, is basically going through the writings and analyzing the data, where corroborating the scene, because Maria Valtorta is describing, well, it's a full moon, or she's describing constellations, she's giving dates, she's referencing the Hebrew calendar, she's referencing, for example, there were years they followed a lunar calendar, and they had years where there was a 13th month, embolismic year. So Maria Valtorta in her writings has this wealth of data of the Hebrew calendar, of lunar cycles. I mean, because they followed the where Christ was resting on certain rest days, because they wouldn't be able to walk on the Sabbath, which is from Friday evening to Saturday evening. So there's so much data, and you can, with science, you can place Christ in history in a very real, tangible sense. This is the great thing about it. And every time you reread her writings, you're really drawn into the details that you just kind of missed. There's in the writings of Maria Valtorta, Mary, she is in the temple from a very young age. She is born from when her parents are elderly, when her mother is more or less 55 years old. And Maria Valtorta, does a lot of describing how she thinks Anna, Mary's mother, looks very much like John the Baptist. But they also, they see something miraculous in the fact that she is born, and they're also discussing the prophecy of the Messiah, the 70 weeks in Daniel. It's all detailed out there, and you're kind of in front of this miraculous child in a way. And sometimes there are child prodigies out there, children that are just born, that are light years ahead in intelligence and in wisdom. And you see this in the Blessed Virgin Mary in a very young child. This girl that's ahead in intelligence and wisdom that is... need I say more? I don't need to tell you more about our Blessed Mother. But we see that the hand of God revealing, showing us, drawing us into this world, which is truly incredible. I suppose it's the science sells her work, but then once you know it's true, you're drawn into contemplation. It was amazing. Some of the speakers, they have some books now published to help with Ignatian spiritual exercises. And if we go back to Saint Ignatius, he works with the imagination in some of the work in the spiritual exercises. And we have this wealth of data here that can help with trying to place you in a particular scene. I mean, how many people have heard the prodigal son? Well, Maria Valtorta, when she's drawing us into this moment where Christ is giving this parable, you're placed in the room with the people in front of him. You are drawn into the scene, placed in the scene. She has a strange and very uncanny way of placing you in the scene. Of course, when you know there's truth there, then you're following Christ in the scene. You're drawn into it. That's why I find it interesting. But what I did find interesting with this second volume is the complete calendar, all of the dates, every single week of the 40 months of his ministry. So they have put the gospel passage in here, the passage from Maria Valtorta. It's fascinating. It's fascinating book. And one of the authors here, he is Agustin Gonzalez, Jimenez Gonzalez. He's the Doctor of Theology, biblical specialty from the Gregorian University in Rome, and he's permanent professor of theology in the Ecclesiastical University of San Damaso in Madrid, and director of the Department of Sacred Scripture. And he teaches the Old Testament story of the Bible, Greek, Hebrew, and various different materials. I find it fascinating when you see doctors of theology studying Maria Valtorta. I mean, we also have Blessed Gabriel Allegre, who obviously biblical expert, studied an expert in his area. He also promoted Maria Valtorta. We also have two professors from the Marianum, Father Corrado Berti and Gabriele Allegre, who also supported Maria Valtorta, especially Father Berti. So there's been a wave. And I was fascinated when I was in Italy to see how many religious communities had studied and bought the writings of Maria Valtorta, different communities. It's incredible to see. I suppose people don't know this, how widely diffused her works are now in the church. She is probably one of the most read mystics around the world, translated into so many languages. There are 3 translations of Maria Valtorta's work in Arabic. 3 translations. I mean, that's a phenomenal work that people are doing. It's amazing that she's been translated all around the world now. I mean, in all the major languages. In France, her works are extensively known. I mean, if you look up Maria Valtorta on YouTube, some of the top most viewed videos are in French. Fascinating. I do feel a call to make her better known in the English speaking world, and Steve Austin and the Maria Valtorta Readers group. You'll see the links to all of that stuff. It's in every single one of my videos, because I think people need, if I could diffuse her even more, I would. But I find it interesting that you have scientists, Liberato De Caro and Fernando La Greca, and theologians and doctors studying and promoting and finding this treasure in the church. I mean, this book, these two books that I bought, I couldn't leave them down because there's so much. I mean, they knit together so many little details that I found interesting. There was a beautiful talk on Saturday about the ointment. I think I've mentioned this before in another video, about the ointment that Mary Magdalene uses for to anoint Christ before he goes to Jerusalem. And it's important to understand the Jews of that time had their own customs. They had special burial customs. Anointing, preparing your body and putting ointments and stuff on it was part of their custom. Putting the cloth, the shroud over them was part of their custom. And I suppose we kind of forget this when we pick up the gospel, that there's a whole Jewish world that's actually not written in the gospel. It's kind of, I suppose, by the evangelists, kind of taken for granted that people would understand certain customs, like that, for example, how far people could walk in the Sabbath, or the various customs that and law and Jewish law that people practiced at that time. Now, when you read Maria Valtorta, you see this pretty clear. You know, how men would greet each other with a kiss, which, you know, in today's world, I suppose we live in a very different custom, but this is the world that they lived in. How people would bow down when they greet each other. To certain people, if you know, you had to be pure, the purification rites that people had to perform before their meals, or if they touched dead or something. I mean, before you even begin to read Maria Valtorta, you'd need a short course, or just a very short, brief study course on the customs and the interactions that Jews would have had at that time. So that when you come across it in her writings, you say, "Oh, I just never thought of it this way." And this is the fascinating thing about Maria Valtorta. You would need to have a doctorate to be able to write what she wrote. Several doctorates in topography, in geography, in astrology, in Jewish custom, it's amazing. Even some of the words, at times she hears Aramaic being spoken and she tries to write down what she's hearing, but she doesn't get it 100% correct. But going back, we can take the word that she tried to write down and actually go and find out really what she was trying to say. So again, I suppose I'm repeating myself that I've done in previous videos, but you know, the talk on it was towards the end of the day on the ointment that Mary Magdalene used, and where they would have gotten the ointment, and how it was made, comparing to historical accounts, contemporaneous historical accounts about that during that time, about how perfumes and ointments were made. It was fascinating. I'm going to get some of these kind of presentations and reach out to Emilio Matriciani and have an interview with him, and we can present some of his work in English and get it out on YouTube, because it was there's so many things that I found, you know, really, really interesting. It is a work ultimately if you go deep into the writings of Maria Valtorta, where is Christ trying? What is Christ doing? He's trying to introduce us into the true wealth that we need to treasure. You know, he is the King of the Spirit. He never wanted to be a king of this world. And he's always trying to draw our attention to what is truly valuable. You know, there is this tendency in the church that we look only at the good and the goods of this world and try to better people's existence for this world. The church has a very unique mission to prepare you for another world. The greatest act of charity that you can do to any soul is to help them migrate to heaven. That is the greatest. What good is it to gain this whole world if you do not gain eternity? And the church is the only institution that speaks about this other world, that prepares us for this other world, that's pointing the finger at the other world. We're not here to resolve the world's political problems. We're here to save souls, to introduce them into contemplation and union with God. You know, it turns everything upside down. It really does. The encounter with Christ, the understanding truly of his mission, which he speaks of so much in the writings. You know, because sometimes we're just slow to understand what Christ is trying to do in the spiritual life. He is a king of the Spirit. And there's a work that needs to happen there. And it is sometimes we lose focus in the church. We want to be social activists, forgetting the spiritual dimension of what our activity actually should be. It's truly fascinating. It is truly incredible to see all of this studied out, played out. I suppose I'm very passionate about it, and people say you're over-focusing on this mystic, but it's actually very strange how Maria Valtorta sits back in her writing. In this writing, you don't have a massive amount of Maria Valtorta herself. You have some brief explanations of what's happening to her and what she's seeing, you know, brief interactions with Maria Valtorta herself, the mystic. But it is mostly Christ that Our Lady and others that are shining forth, that are coming forth. And there was another study on Saturday. This is a phenomenal study. They were able to use AI to analyze the writing in there, the characters, when Jesus speaks, when Maria Valtorta writes, when other people, and you know, when Maria Valtorta, for example, Maria Valtorta begins every chapter describing it, which, if you're not familiar with her writings, you think, oh, this is just romantic stuff and everything's, and I'm seeing dew and they look like crystals. She's as a woman, she's giving this very romanticized picture of what she sees, which can seem very sweet if you're not familiar with her work. But that is Maria Valtorta, her own description of what she sees at the beginning of. But that as the chapter progressed, once Christ speaks or once the apostles are speaking, Maria Valtorta, her own description describing the scene stops and dictation starts, and it is another it's another genre. It's very clear the two types of writing that you have in the chapter, and you can study this. And I mean, that's a phenomenal reality to see. I mean, you would need to be the greatest writer ever to have lived to just free write out this book, because she took a pen and wrote without stopping making very few corrections. And all of her notebooks are preserved by the Fondazione Erede Maria Valtorta in Isola dell'Iri. They have them all in temperature-controlled vault now and digitalized and stuff like that. So anyway, I do encourage people to read the writings. And if you're interested in coming to a congress, which we hope to do maybe June, July next year, a one-day congress here in Ireland with 4 or 5 or 6 talks. Maybe we'll try and see who we can get over. Maybe if we have enough budget, try to get Steve Austin over from America, because he is, in the English-speaking world, probably one of the biggest experts on Maria Valtorta because of the encyclopedia that he's written, and get the experts over from Italy. I think people would find very, very interesting. I mean, I found the Congress fascinating, so I did. And it's for the good of the church. These writings really are for the good of the church. And again, we have the written approval to go forward and promote Maria Valtorta's writings. And I'm going to run with that without any problems, because I do think these writings are a gift for our time. Anyway, just some reflections, but I'm going to try and do some translations of some of the chapters here on these books until they get translated into English. I loved these books. I thought these were the cooperation between the theological and the scientific area, explaining each of the chapters, and if Maria Valtorta says, well, they're walking from this place to that place, doing the calculations and the maths and how long it took and so forth. Because if you say, Christ walked from here to there, well, how long did that take? Where would he have gone? At what time of the day he started? And you can actually put some of the chapters into very concrete times of day. It's fascinating. Not only that, you can date some of the chapters to the very hour in some instances. I mean, it's quite incredible when you think about it, because this is the treasure of Maria Valtorta. All of those little details at the start of her chapter, dates, because she's referencing 2 calendars. She references the new calendar and she's referencing the Jewish calendar. Days. Because once you have the Sabbath mentioned, we all know what the Sabbath, what it meant. It started from Friday evening, finished on Saturday evening. And so you've got a wealth of data that is being knitted together very, very well. And these books, and many others are really challenging. Will definitely in the future will challenge this position that, she just invented this. She couldn't. It is impossible that Maria Valtorta invented that work. You would have to have several doctorates and an extremely lucid intelligence to be able to write what she wrote. I mean, that's my thoughts on it anyway. But look, I will try and do some more blogs on it, and get some more interviews in here. But anyway, just thought I would kind of narrate some of what happened the weekend, and the visit to her tomb. I've put a video up there, and I've done some videos on the visit to her house. So we just to really drive awareness, and maybe even do a Maria Valtorta pilgrimage to Viareggio, because we stayed in a kind of a hotel that is a convent with the sisters. They have 10 rooms. So you could bring 10 to 15 people on pilgrimage to Viareggio and Florence. You could fly from Dublin to Pisa, do a weekend, just what I did, and introduce people. Maybe there's appetite out there. I don't know. But it'd be good if we could just kind of promote a little bit more awareness there about her. But let's see. Anyway, God bless you. Take care. Bye bye.